The dad bod, once jokingly used to describe someone who let themselves go, is now taking over professional sports. But what if this trend is actually a sign of something more profound? Today, we're diving into why athletes like Patrick Mahomes, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, and Christian Blumenfeld are proving that when it comes to sports performance, skill and function far outweigh the importance of body composition. For decades, we've been sold the idea that the ideal athlete has to be ripped, lean, and chiseled like a bodybuilder. But in reality, professional sports are proving that that isn't the case. In fact, today's athletes are making 5 choices that go against the conventional wisdom of bodybuilding, yet make them better athletes. Let's break down each one. Okay, choice number 1 is lifting for power versus hypertrophy. Let's say Luka Doncic's strength coach is trying to decide how many sets and reps he should do with a trap bar deadlift. Here are 2 different choices that the coach can make. Option number 1 would be to choose hypertrophy or bodybuilding style training. If Luka was focused on building muscle mass and size, the choice to train with higher volume with the goal of muscle hypertrophy, something like 4 sets of 8 at 70 to 78% 1 rep max, over 4 weeks could be a good choice. There would be both pros and cons to this emphasis on building muscle mass and hypertrophy. The pros are that he can build size and strength that he might need for basketball. It's a physical contact sport, and athletes at the NBA level are big. The cons, though, are that this higher volume temporarily increases fatigue, decreases his vertical jump, and decreases the ability to do high-quality skill and sport training. He also may experience some adaptive stiffness in the spine and the hips if he just focuses on heavy bilateral exercises. That said, off-season, maybe that's totally fine. This might be exactly what he needs for a few months out of the year. But let's explore option number 2, which is training for power. Think of power as how fast you can express your strength. So while athletes do spend time building muscle mass and strength, they also need to train to express that strength quickly. This is where bodybuilding and athlete training start to look a lot different. So how could Luka train for power? Well, instead of doing 4 sets of 8 at 70 to 78% 1 rep max, he could train 4 sets of 4 with the same weight. This would allow for maximal intent each repetition, much higher bar speed, and much less fatigue. Relative to doing more volume to where it's more fatiguing though, research shows us that this power-focused approach is less effective for muscle hypertrophy. But that said, it's much more effective for improving vertical jump and sprint speed. Current technology like this Vitruve device that goes around a barbell allow us to measure and very precisely give athletes power-based training and measure the exact amount of fatigue and stress that they're experiencing. Here's the big picture. Prioritizing power-focused training allows athletes to be powerful and sprint and jump well instead of just building more and more muscle mass. And to be clear, power-focused training by no means gives you a dad bod, but compounded with the other 4 choices that we're going to discuss, you can see where athlete physiques diverge from bodybuilding physiques. Okay, let's move on to choice number 2, which is fueling for performance rather than body composition. Common for bodybuilders to go through phases of bulking and cutting. Bulking phases are often a component of athlete training as well, but likely just for a few months out of the year. The big difference between athletes and bodybuilders, though, is in the cutting phases. People don't realize that a bodybuilder, especially when they become very lean, often near 5 to 8% body fat, sacrifice a ton of performance and health to get to that point. The truth is, top athletes have no serious cutting phases below around 10 to 15% body fat. That's because it would come at the expense of being fueled for skill training and for competition. Some athletes naturally sit on the leaner side, but it really wouldn't be in an athlete's best interest to go through extreme phases of bulking and cutting or trying to get very lean below about 10% body fat. Rather, it's far more beneficial to just stay in a healthy range that fuels performance. That leads us to choice number 3, which is how athletes choose to do cardio or endurance training. A body composition focused cardio session might involve low intensity cardio with the intent to burn fat. Bodybuilders often choose to perform fasted cardio sessions as well. They're doing cardio for the purpose of changing their body composition and becoming very lean. Athletes build conditioning differently. For example, Christian Blumenfeld isn't really doing cardio, definitely not for the purpose of getting lean. He's doing aerobic conditioning training with the purpose of building the most impressive aerobic engine in the world. His training plan is built entirely around optimizing optimizing performance of his cardiovascular system. He's pushing to very high volumes of aerobic training, often greater than 30 hours per week. And he's fueling with carbohydrates all throughout his training so he can digest about 140 grams of glucose per hour so he can get as many watts into the bike and put out as much power as possible without hitting the wall. He's recovering after his training sessions with fast digesting carbohydrates to replenish his stored carbohydrates as fast as possible for the next intense training session, often just a few hours later. So as you can see, his entire training is optimized for performance and not body composition. And this isn't just endurance athletes. Basketball and football athletes also approach conditioning with a performance-first priority. I think this is a good time to mention that this is actually a really healthy approach, particularly whenever you're already very lean and in a calorie deficit. Adding a bunch of cardio on top of that can be detrimental for health and not really improve aerobic performance and true conditioning. It's common to see high cortisol levels, impaired thyroid function, low white blood cell count, compromised immune cell function, decreased bone mineral density, and other physiological and psychological effects of getting really lean and trying to do a bunch of cardio. It's in an athlete's best interest to avoid this and perform conditioning and cardiovascular training well fueled with a performance rather than a body composition focus. Before we get into the next choice though, I want to take a second to thank our sponsor, 10,000. If you're anything like me, then chances are you're still wearing the same workout shorts and free t-shirts from college that don't really look that good for working out. The reality is that workout shorts nowadays are much more comfortable, super stretchy, and make you feel a lot better when you're working out. I'm really happy with upgrading to the 10,000 interval shorts with a built-in liner, which makes these really great for running as well as for working out. They have a ton of great color options, so you can actually make some good looking workout sets that are more than just black shorts and a free t-shirt. Going to the gym in a well-fitted, comfortable workout set just makes you feel a lot better and gives you a better workout. They feel like really high quality shorts. I enjoy the shorter inseam and overall would recommend them. You can head to 10,000.cc and use code MOVEMENT for 20% off. Now back to the video. All right, choice number 4 is a bit controversial and it concerns performance enhancing substances. So as you know, performance enhancing substances are banned in professional sports, so no one uses them. And in professional bodybuilding, most people recognize the dangers and only some IFBB professionals use them responsibly. No, that's a complete lie. The truth is that all IFBB professional bodybuilders and even some pro athletes are using performance enhancing substances, but they just do it in different ways. Bodybuilders use a myriad of substances including anabolic steroids, insulin, peptides, diuretics, painkillers, and more. The body composition effects that these have come at the expense of cardiovascular and organ health, long-term hormonal balance, and psychological health. I think it's fair to say that athletes overall tend to take a more health-centric approach to performance-enhancing substances. For example, Peyton Manning and others have used something like HGH primarily for the effects on collagen synthesis and tendon repair. The focus is generally on faster recovery from injuries and resiliency to play their sport longer. That said, they still can be abused when trying to expedite natural healing timelines and still do pose risks. Okay, and then lastly, choice number 5 involves the actual exercises that athletes versus bodybuilders are choosing. When it comes to bodybuilding, the goal is to achieve the most symmetrical, defined, and impressive physique possible. Bodybuilders spend countless hours isolating muscles to create a chiseled look that fits the criteria of bodybuilding competitions. This often includes exercises like bicep curls and calf raises and other isolation movements that are purely focused on muscle appearance. But professional athletes are training with a completely different mindset. For them, the primary goal is to enhance specific skills and functional movements that are required to excel in their sports. Athletes like Luka Doncic train movements that prepare him for the demands of basketball. For example, he might focus on landing mechanics, hip mobility, and conditioning with a sled push. None of these are particularly important for body composition. Patrick Mahomes might focus on med ball throws in multiple directions to improve power, skips and sprints for building speed, with isometric holds to improve tendon health and connective tissue. Nikola Jokic might focus on building functional strength with loaded carries, lateral movements to improve how his hips move, and conditioning in Serbia outside his horse farm with a tire. These athletes are developing not just their muscles, but also their nervous system for coordination, stability, and speed. Because skill-driven training doesn't prioritize muscle isolation or aesthetic symmetry, athletes may not develop the extreme muscle definition seen in bodybuilders. Instead, their physiques are more functional and suited to the demands of their sport, which may contribute to the dad bod appearance in some cases. This doesn't mean that they're less fit though. Often, on the contrary, their training makes them incredibly powerful, agile, and durable, which is why they excel at the highest level of competition. Okay, so what can we learn from these elite athletes? The takeaway is clear. Focus on what matters. Prioritize skill development, strength, condition, and proper fueling over chasing a specific look if your goal is to excel in sports. I think this message is particularly important for youth athletes who would benefit way more from focusing on skill development and enjoying their sport rather than trying to achieve a look of someone that they saw on the internet. But even as an adult, you can make the choice to train for a body that's prepared for pickup basketball and long bike rides with your friends, because maybe we shouldn't see the dad bod as letting yourself go, but rather a choice to focus on what you enjoy most. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.